Hello, my name is John Ford, and I've been a programmer for a number of years, and I've worked in a variety of different languages. In this video series, I'm going to be going over the sorts of things that aren't really, I don't think, emphasized enough in introductory CS courses, and the sorts of things that I've seen people struggle with, whether they've just started programming or whether they've been programming for a number of years. So let's get started. In this video, I'll specifically be examining debugging. And in the first portion of it, I'll probably separate it into two separate videos. In the first portion, I will be showing the steps that I use when I'm debugging. And then in the next portion of it, I will go through two different examples of me using the steps that I'm showing you here to debug different programs. The first one's going to be a more basic program in Java, and the other one's going to be a more specialized program in Python. So before we get started, I'd like to say that I think debugging is a crucial aspect of the development process that often gets overlooked because people think about the programming or the actual development of the program. But really, if you look at what it means to develop a new program, I like to break it up into three sections. One is Googling, or in other words, researching, because usually when you're writing a program, it's a program unlike the ones you have written before. So you need to learn about the new libraries that you'll be using and the sorts of how to do the sorts of things that you would like to do. Then, of course, there's the actual programming. And then, more often than not, especially if you're writing a super involved program, you're going to run into a lot of errors. And so you have to go through the process of debugging, figuring out why the program isn't working the way you might want it to. And uh, how how much programming as to how much debugging you have to do really varies depending on the project you're doing. But for more involved projects like the ones that I like to work on, I noticed that debugging can take up as much of my time, if not even more time, than the actual programming itself. So sorry about all my talking. Let's get started. There are three types of errors that we're going to go over. First are syntax, then there's runtime and semantic errors. And I'll talk about more about each of these when I actually get into every specific error, and I'll give examples of these. But in essence, syntax errors are when the program fails at compile time. Runtime errors are when the program fails at runtime. And compile time is when you compile a program before running it. And depending on the IDE you're using, this can happen during build time, or if you're using an IDE like Eclipse, it'll yell at you and tell you, hey, there's a syntax error here, like you forgot a semicolon or whatever. Whereas runtime, you have to actually run the program, and only then you'll get what's known as an exception, an uncaught exception, where the program stops abruptly and tells you that something went wrong. A semantic error is when the program executes successfully. So you ran the program, it worked, but didn't give you what you wanted.